Patricia MacLachlan is the author of numerous award-winning picture books and novels for young readers. Her first novel, Sarah Plain and Tall, won a 1986 Newbery Medal and the Scotto Dell Award for Historical Fiction. Ensuing books in the Sarah Plain and Tall trilogy, Skylark and Caleb's Story, were the basis of 3 television movies, all written by Patricia MacLachlan. Other novels include Cassie Vinegar, The Facts and Fictions of Minna Pratt, Edward's Eyes, More Perfect Than the Moon, and her most recent Word After Word After Word. She is also the author of many picture books, some of them co-written with her daughter Emily MacLachlan. She has won the National Humanities Medal, the Golden Kite Award, the Boston Globe Horn Book Award, the Parents' Choice Award, the Christopher Medal, and numerous notable and best lists. Most writers can point to those moments when they read work that took the top of their heads off, work that made them wish they could write like that. As an adult, I've had innumerable moments like this. As a young reader, and then again as a young mother, reading aloud to my children, I had these moments each time I read Sarah Plain and Tall, which my daughters asked me to read over and over again. Just listen to the lines. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the window. Outside, the prairie reached down and touched the places where the sky came down. Though winter was nearly over, there were patches of snow and ice everywhere. I looked at the long dirt road that crawled across the plains, remembering the morning that Mama had died, cruel and sunny. They had come for her in a wagon and taken her away to be buried, and then the cousins and aunts and uncles had come and tried to fill up the house, but they couldn't. Heather Vogel Frederick wrote this in the New York Times Book Review. If writers of children's fiction were organized into a guild, the title of Master Craftsman would be bestowed upon Patricia MacLachlan. We are thrilled to have this Master Craftsman here with us today. Please welcome Patricia MacLachlan.
I'm going to talk. I actually named my speech. I like naming things. My second son and his wife are going to have a new baby, and they've refused to let me name the baby. But the name of my little talk is The Family I Call Mine. There you are. And I'm proud to be a part of this today, and I congratulate you graduates, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, children, friends, spouses, and those who want to be spouses. You may be here too. You all share in this, as do your teachers and mentors who have helped guide, inspire, and drag you kicking to this point. Did they drag you kicking? Yes. Yes, I knew that. When I was first asked to speak today, I was in the middle of revising a play about my many times in middle school and high school detention. Now, you may not remember detention. It didn't seem right somehow that I would be speaking to the exalted MFA students with my history. On the other hand, I met my best friends in detention. Some of them are public servants. One helped manage a failed presidential campaign. That's probably because he was in detention. 2 are physicians, 2 professors, a musician, and some people who are just plain hilarious and still bad. So how did I get to detention? I talked too much. I stared out the window. I daydreamed. I started stories in class. I left inappropriately. I did. But I love detention. And how did the kid in detention get to be here? You probably already made the connection. I still left inappropriately. It is a journey, and it is my journey, but perhaps not as so different from yours. Let's talk about us. I like this. When did you decide to be a writer? And do you remember? Do you remember? Yes, I love these people. Well, I remember, and I'm going to tell you the story, and it's a looking back story, the way so many of us writers tell stories. There was a moment when my mother said something, when I, Patricia MacLachlan, learned everything I needed to be a writer. I knew it then, and I was 10 years old. You might say, so what took you so long? I was born on the prairie. Well, not on the grass, but in a hospital. And every summer or fall or spring, my father drove us in his old car through mountain passes, up and down steep roads. I remember there were no guardrails, and my mother ended up sitting on the floor of the back seat. And through over rivers and through tiny towns on the flatlands prairies of Wyoming with names I loved: Rattlesnake, Sunrise, Spotted Horse. I was in the back seat surrounded by books in case I got bored. I have read my way across the country many times. I believe it's in Rattlesnake where we stopped. Yes, it was Rattlesnake. You know how I know? All around the filling station, there were the rattlers of rattlesnakes. It was really gorgeous. We went to get icy soda out of lift-top water tanks. I think that dates me. And my mother and I walked out to the prairie. She looked down at her dusty footprint in the prairie dust and said this: "You know, Patty, someone may have walked here long ago, or maybe no one ever has. Either way, it's history." Well, I stared at my mother, I remember, lifting her Dr. Pepper to her lips. I watched the drip of coolness fall down the side of the glass. If this were a movie, and I've written them, so I know, this is how it would happen. The camera would pan to my face, looking shocked and surprised and awestruck, and then it would pan to the endless rolling land, and music would swell. I know how this is done. No one would see my thoughts, however, because it's a movie. But I remember them well. And here were my thoughts. Oh no, I am not the center of the universe after all. It is a child's role to be the center of the universe, but all of a sudden I realized that maybe there were those who came before me who would be afraid of the dark, or those who would come after me and maybe dress their dog in an undershirt and make him sit out in the front yard. I was at that moment quite simply connected, and that was all I needed: connection. I was not alone in the universe, and I knew at that young age that those who came before me and those who came after me were my family. This leads me to the rest of what I want to say to you. I'm going to stand right here and tell you how much I respect and admire you. That needs to be said, and it needs to be heard by you. And the most important fact I will tell you right now, I'm so smart today. Perhaps you can run this up a flagpole outside your house. Write it on your wall, in your notebook, in your heart. The writer is brave. But you and I, who've chosen to write for young people, are perhaps the bravest of all. And that is because we know that children believe. Children read with that belief and that acceptance and that surrender to the story. Children tend to read to find out how the world works. They read to find out who they are. They read to find out how to change their lives and make sense of their lives, or make sense of some of the sadness and joy of their families. They read to be surprised and delighted and to become wise. Children read to come away changed. Uh-oh. And you know this. Should I say that is also the reason we write? It is, and you know it. And that is why you and I have to be brave as our readers. The writer Joan Didion says it best, and I started my novel word after word after word with it when she writes, "I write entirely to find out what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at, what I see and what it means, what I want and what I fear." Those are strong words and not for the faint of heart, and the child readers read to that end. And these child readers are the family I call mine. They are often honest, this family of mine. One child wrote me, and I keep this on my refrigerator. Dear Mrs. MacLachlan, Sarah Plain-Tall is the second to the greatest book I've ever read. Love, Donald. There isn't a day I don't open the refrigerator and say, okay, Donald, what's the first greatest book? And the child who wrote, Dear Mrs. MacLachlan, are you married? I'm not. How is it, Mary Bridget? Which is how I came to write to a 9-year-old the ups and downs of married life. And a child whose parents named him well. Dear Mrs. MacLachlan, I have read the book and watched the movie of Sarah Plain-Tall. They're good, but I've seen better. Best wishes to you anyway, Maverick. I have my own family, of course, my very own family. My father and mother were great readers and educators. And my father acted out Peter Rabbit with me 50 times a day if I asked him, taking the roles. We'd have dialogues, we'd have little philosophical discussions. We sent Peter Rabbit to Paris once on a boat. And in some ways, books were so real, in many ways more real than real life for me. Now my father's 1,500-acre farm is in Sarah Plain-Tall. Every time I open it, I see it. I'll just read this one part. And I miss it. Sarah came in the spring. She came through green grass fields that bloomed with Indian paintbrush, red and orange, and blue-eyed grass. Papa got up early for the day's trip to the train and back. He brushed his hair so slick and shiny that Caleb laughed. He wore a clean blue shirt and a belt instead of suspenders. He fed and watered the horses, looking at them as he hitched them up in the wagon. Old Bess, calm and kind, Jack wild-eyed, reaching over to nip Tess on the neck. Clear day, Bess, said Papa, rubbing her nose. Settle down, Jack. And then Papa drove off along the dirt road to fetch Sarah, Papa's new wife, maybe our new mother. Gophers ran back and forth across the road, stopping to stand up and watch the wagon. Far off in the field, a woodchuck sat and ate and listened. I love that farm.